What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented as always by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. As always, I'm your host, Justin Michaels. Some folks around here call me J Mike. Got a pretty loaded show for you. We've got a lot to dive into. Going to start with just kind of a fun little bit that was inspired by Denver Sports Radio. Talk about some next level Rams really starring out right now for their respective franchises. I'll pose the question if not only the top guy, but if the top two players in the NFL from Colorado schools, at least at the moment, are both CSU Rams. We'll get into some hoops takeaways from Monday night. We'll kind of talk about the outlook for this team, what stood out about some of the new pieces. Kyle Jorgensen looked really good. We'll get into all that. And then obviously at the end, we'll talk a little bit about Saturday's matchup with UNLV. I've been pretty honest. The last month of football season is going to be a bit of a drag. We're obviously still going to cover it. You never know what might happen. Maybe the bye week was enough for this program to at least lick their wounds a little bit and come out at least a little bit more competitive on these final four games. But you know, to be honest, it just feels hard to envision a scenario where this team does much more than maybe squeaking out one last win, if that. It was so uninspiring against Wyoming. I was on ESPN Las Vegas yesterday. They had me on quite a bit. Always enjoy going on with those guys. And they were kind of surprised how I was basically just like, I just don't see a world in which CSU is able to even remotely score enough points to hang with this UNLV team. And I've been very dismissive of the Rebels in terms of them being true contenders. Their defense is Swiss cheese. But that's how low I am on CSU football at the moment. It's been ugly. We'll talk about that at the end. I want to have a little bit more fun here at the beginning. Shout out to everybody rocking with us in the Toyota chat. Great to see my good friend Aaron Harris with us as usual. Says he just got a liquid IV to rehydrate before the episode. Got to stay hydrated. It's key. Shout out to our guy, TALP, Talp. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. He says, how about we pretend CSU football doesn't exist for now? We can definitely do that, at least for the next half hour or so. Or we can focus a little bit on the good times, at least. And the good times from a football viewing standpoint are more associated with the next level Rams at the moment, the guys in the NFL. Tory Horton having a phenomenal rookie season with Seattle. I said it when he got drafted. I wrote that him landing in a Clint Kubiak system was going to be perfect, that they would know how to maximize his strengths as a player, that they would put him in a position to succeed. It's been exactly that. I also liked that they have an established number one in Jackson Smith-Njigba, as well as a proven guy like Cooper Kupp to kind of lean on at times. You didn't have a ton of pressure on Tory to be the number one guy right out of the gate. Instead, you can kind of scheme up some optimal opportunities for him to get the ball in his hands in the red zone, especially. They've really found a way to get the ball in his hands. Had an awesome showing on Sunday Night Football, I guess it was. 2 touchdowns in that game, now up to 22 catches for 161 yards, which definitely doesn't jump off the paper, but 5 receiving touchdowns plus a punt return. He's averaging 14.9 yards per punt return. I mean, it's not surprising at all to any of us that were fortunate to watch his career up and close in Fort Collins. Had he not gotten injured, there's no doubt in my mind that at worst he would have been a 3rd-round pick. I think he had a chance to play his way into the 2nd round, maybe even be a fringe late 1st rounder just because of how well he can run. The fact that he was able to run like a 4.41, not even 100% healthy, is a testament to his athleticism and his raw speed. It's just been really cool to see. And it's funny, I was listening to Altitude Radio the other day, and I don't know this for sure. If I had to guess, DMAC probably saw my tweet mocking some of the Denver media for fixating on the wrong 5th-round pick. And I want to be clear here, while I am having some fun with this segment from the CSU side of things, the point of this is not to try and put down Travis Hunter or anything like that. I think he's an incredible talent. I think he's a good dude as well. Shedeur, just from an objective standpoint, is not my favorite guy. Being transparent, I feel like his supporters tend to make a lot of excuses for him. And I just feel like the situation that he's in is kind of the product of him overplaying his hand a little bit, bringing an attitude to the pre-draft process that was not justified given kind of where he was at as far as NFL prospects go. Certainly feel like he's a tough dude, covered up a lot of holes for that CU football program. I mean, look where they're at without him. He was a great college football player. But it was funny to me because DMAC posed the question on DMAC Columbus and Harris, I believe it's called, the Altitude radio show in the afternoon. Catch it fairly often when I'm running errands around town. It's an enjoyable show. I don't know those guys very well. Just, again, being transparent here. I've been around DMAC a little bit at the Avs games. Never met Tyler Columbus, never met Scott Hastings. But again, I do enjoy the show. But it was funny to me because DMAC, and he's not wrong, but he raised the point, was Tory Horton, the best draft pick out of a Colorado school this year, which immediately, Columbus played at CU, not surprising. Drew kind of some shock from him. He was baffled when it was pointed out to him the production that Tory has had this year. Made some kind of comment like, I guess it just matters how much you value touchdown production. You look at the total stats. Travis Hunter, 28 catches for 298 yards, 1 touchdown. Does have more catches, more yards than Tory this year. Also, obviously, the defensive stats, 3 PBUs and 15 total tackles. I feel like his ceiling is going to be incredibly high as a player if he can stay healthy. I kind of think he should just be a receiver. I think his ability to impact the game more consistently there is going to be something you just don't get from a lot of guys. He's got some explosiveness to him that reminds me of Justin Jefferson. I also understand how hard it is to find corners of his caliber, though, and that's why you want him to play both ways. Physically, whether he's able to do that or not is really going to dictate, whether he was worth Jacksonville trading up, taking him with the number 2 pick. But I mean, when you look at the value of getting 6 total touchdowns from Tory right now over the first half of the season as a mid-5th round pick versus a guy you took, 2nd overall, I mean, you could make an argument that Tory Horton was the best value pick of this past NFL draft class. It's not surprising that he's succeeding. Again, these guys are incredibly talented. We knew that going in. The point of this is really not to try and put down Travis Hunter, who I think is going to have an awesome NFL career. I think the other buffs you could put in the conversation if you were trying to decide who is the best NFL player, period, out of Colorado schools. To me right now, it's Trey McBride. And I want to point out that while I was giving those radio guys a little bit of crap for being a little bit dismissive of the idea of Tory being the best draft pick and being so surprised about his production, they did give a lot of respect to Trey McBride. And they said he, at the moment, is the best NFL player out of a Colorado school, which I think really is tough to argue. I think there's an argument that Trey is the best player at his position. I don't think that's locked and set in stone. There's a lot of really talented tight ends in the NFL right now, but I mean, he is having an incredible season, really an incredible career when you look at how much he's targeted and how much he's able to produce. He's a top 20 pass catcher in the league, period, these past couple of seasons. Not just a top 20 tight end, a top 20 pass catcher. It's a bunch of receivers, and then Trey, when you look at his target rate, it's crazy. 273 catches for over 2,700 yards. Only 11 touchdowns in his career, which has been a struggle going back to his days at CSU. I'll never forget the excuses Adazio used to make when we'd ask him, how do you not get this guy the ball more in that part of the field? But it is finally trending the other way, especially now that Jacoby Brissett has taken over, really popping off, up to 5 touchdowns on the season, 52 grabs for 476 yards. These seasons that Trey McBride and Tory Horton are having right now is really cool to see, and it could not happen for better guys. Obviously incredibly talented, a lot of fun to see, and I can't help but think of what this does for CSU from a perception standpoint. The wins and losses have not been there on the field this year. With the actual football program, it's just been a year from hell in basically every single aspect. But there's never a better recruiting tool, a better selling point than having a track record of player development and being known as a place where you can not only get to the league, but you can get to the league and succeed because you were developed the right way at CSU. Those guys get a lot of opportunity to play a lot of snaps. And that's obviously the argument you make as a school like CSU when you're going out trying to land these potential NFL players is Do you want to go somewhere else and maybe just be one of a handful of guys, or do you want to come to CSU? And, obviously Trey winning the Mackey Award was incredible. That's about as good as it can get. Still feel like he should have been a first round pick. But even Tory, despite the injuries, was able to put a lot of production on the books. He had a lot of versatile film from his time at CSU, both as a star out wide and then obviously in the return game. Still crazy to me that he fell as far as he did. I understand injuries in the pre-draft process and all of that. It gets a little bit wonky, but to see these guys produce the way that they are, it's a lot of fun. And I think we actually get them matched up against each other this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, the Cardinals and Seahawks. Just been a lot of fun to watch these two shine. And again, you just couldn't be happier for those dudes. Not only are they incredible talents, but could not have more. Could not be more gracious. Could not be more humble. That's what I'm trying to say. Got a little tongue tied there, but it's just been cool to see. And I think from a perception standpoint, it's pretty neat to see the way that the next level Rams are starring in the NFL. And most certainly, you need to have more success on the football field, the collegiate ranks, but it's a really strong selling point for this school. And I think it's one of the factors that also makes it look attractive if you are a coach on the rise or somebody looking to redeem himself or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to talk a ton about coaching candidates today because we're just going to fixate on it so much over the next month. There's only so many times we can go in circles and say the same things about the same candidates. Obviously, if somebody comes out of left field at some point, we can talk about them. I did see that CBS has linked Mike Gundy to the CSU job, which that would make me really hesitant. It would make me really nervous. In 2012, I love that idea. In 2025, it terrifies me. He just does not feel like a guy who's been able to modernize with the current landscape. I will say, going back and looking at the numbers, I forgot they were like a 10-win team in 2023 or whatever it was. It got real bad at the end. I feel like there are better options that are more cost affordable. We've already had the guys being dudes meme. We don't really need the I'm a man, I'm 40. I could maybe talk myself into it just based on him potentially needing a change of scenery or something like that, just looking desperately to find an optimistic lens. I don't like the idea of Mike Gundy, though, and I'm publishing a piece that's going to have like 15 to 20 coaches on it. He would not be one of the guys that I would have on that list. So that kind of shows you where I'm at as far as potential candidates. I've said it a bunch of times now, but I just lean more into the guys who have a track record of doing more with less, guys who have built programs, sustained it despite a lot of obstacles. I think FCS coaches tend to fit that mold. Guys that had success at the FCS and FBS level, even more intriguing. But I don't know. That does not feel like a hire that would be rooted in a whole lot of substance. Sure, you would get some PR out of it. You would get a lot of attention, maybe more national attention than most of the guys that you could hire just because of Gundy and his persona and, his charismatic personality and all that. It would get clicks, it would get attention, but I think we've seen now kind of what happens with programs that lean into that. Sure, it's great to have millions of people talking about you, but it's better? Winning football games. Having a chance to compete for championships. Maybe less folks are talking about it if you go with a Brent Vigen or a Tim Polisak or something like that. But here in Fort Collins, it sure would feel better to have something substantial and legitimate and not just a flash in the pan or not just an attention grab that gets you a little bit of time in the sun, but is ultimately pretty fleeting pretty quickly. So that's where I'm at with that. Let's get into hoops. Again, we'll talk CSU UNLV at the end, but I do want to talk hoops after a really encouraging start from the Rams in game one of the Ali Farokhmanesh era. Let me shout out a couple of partners real quick. Keep the comments in the Toyota chat rolling. Hey, Colorado, stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods for the hottest apparel and footwear from top brands like Nike, Adidas Original, Hoka, DNVR, and more. Plus, score the latest equipment for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf, and all your tailgating essentials. If you found a lower price, we'll match it with our best price guarantee. You can get your gear fast and free with curbside pickup at the nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dicks. Additionally, I want to shout out our homies over at Game Time. Game Time, making it easier than ever to get great deals on all of your favorite events. They've got everything from stand-up comedy and theater to every sport in between. Download the Game Time app. Check out some of their awesome deals. One of the things that I love about the Game Time app is how user-friendly it is. It shows you all of the events in your area. But on top of that, it's just convenient because the price you see is the price that you are going to pay. You're not going to get hit with 8 million fees at the end. They've got all kinds of fun deals, like zone deals, where if you pick the section, they pick the seats and you can save even more. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Okay. Steve Sarkisian, or we storm Moby, Ken says. Swole says, if Gundy comes, we'll get Hammerschmidt back on the staff. That is a small win. Guy with a lot of Ram ties. Aaron says, Urban Meyer better be on that list. Checks every box, having some fun in the Toyota chat. Love to see it. Let's talk hoops, though. Let's transition the conversation to a program that actually makes all of us feel some joy inside, that gives us a sense of pride and excitement and allows us to look at life through an optimistic lens instead of the Charlie Brown lifestyle that tends to follow us on the football side of things. One of these days, Lucy is not going to pull that football away, and it's going to be glorious. But until then, we're going to keep falling on our ass and feeling dumb for believing that it ever had an opportunity to be different in the first place. But let's talk CSU hoops. They beat Incarnate Word 98-64. Not a program that's going to move the needle a ton, but also a bit of a sleeper, I would say. I mean, that's a program that does have some talent. They had a couple of scorers that did some real work in it. One guy had 27, another had 20. They didn't get a whole lot out of anybody else, but I thought, all things considered, a pretty encouraging showing from CSU in game one under Ali Farokhmanesh. They never trailed, led for about 39 and a half minutes. Ali looked really composed on the sidelines, didn't feel like he looked frazzled when things at times got stagnant or ugly, didn't overreact to a bad turnover, things like that. Was just very, very calm and cool. Post-game came off very gracious, came off humble. He's a guy who's always going to look good in those scenarios because he's just genuinely a really good person. He cares about those players, made sure to shout out every individual he could, even in his intro statement, which I love to see. I'm going to play a clip where he had a ton of high praise for his staff. It was just a really encouraging showing where I felt like CSU probably exceeded expectations, at least as far as game one went. Had a chance to hit 100 points, which would have been funny. Had that as one of the 15 bold predictions after not scoring 100 points last year. Said CSU would do it. Almost did it in game one. I felt like it was the sportsman-like thing to do to call off the dogs at the end. I was classy. Almost saw Pasquarelli hit 5 threes, which was another one of our preseason bold predictions. Went 4 of 5 or 4 of 6 from deep. Why can't we get CSU games on altitude? That was one of the things I was thinking about. Why can't we just get Roth and Nigon? Why can't they show that on altitude? I saw they had announced a deal to broadcast a bunch of New Mexico games this year. We get Air Force on there. How many tournaments do we got to go to get that local station in Denver to pay attention to the best hoops program in the state? But here is clip one. This is Ali Farokhmanesh. This is his intro statement after winning his first career game as a head coach.
Questions after? I've never done this. No, I thought the best part we talked about for these guys was 22 assists on 29 field goals. We wanted the assist percentage high, over 60%. So for that to stand out, that was a major key for this game. The other piece was taking care of the ball, which at times was good. The rebounding, though, I thought that was phenomenal. We got beat up on the glass in both our exhibitions and scrimmages. So for us to out-rebound them by 23, and yeah, I guess if you only miss 19 shots, you're not going to lose the rebounding battle. But I was really proud, and I think one of the biggest ones that stands out to me is Kyle Jorgensen. It was kind of ironic the year before. I am going to cry now. The year before, he got subbed out for Rashard got hurt, subs in, can't rebound, right? Then this year, same thing happens. He gets hurt. Now he gets a chance to start again. Dude has 15 and 9 rebounds. Like that's phenomenal. That tells me he's grown so much. So for him to be able to do that was awesome. 15 points, 4 assists, 9 rebounds. Like that's a great game. And then challenge Brandon after the Creighton game to become more of a point guard, right? And then he goes off and has 6 assists. And the best part was, though, to me was he made, I think it was 2 threes or 3 threes in that stretch right there. And then followed it up with 2 assists immediately after that. And I think that tells me like he was just trying to make the right play, whether that was a shot for himself or to make the play for the next person. So there's not a whole lot to complain about to be honest with you. And then the best part was Charlie getting the basket at the end. But awesome night for us, and it was fun to be back in Moby and seeing a crowd like that again too.
All right, if you're counting, I think there were at least 3 or 4 the best parts there from Ali, who genuinely was maybe a little bit frazzled at the podium. It is a weird process when you're not used to it. He always just comes off so genuine, though, and it's easy to see why the program has the culture that it does and why guys want to play for a coach like that. We'll play another clip at the end after we go through some stats where Kyle Jorgensen kind of talks about Ali being a big part of why he came back. Brandon Rechsteiner talking about how much it means to him to be a part of Ali's first win because of the amount of faith that he has in those players and just what they do to build those guys up. And yeah, as we're seeing in the Toyota chat here, the track record of player development is just incredible for CSU right now. And I think it is why we have seen the program gain access to a different caliber of athlete. When you look at this roster, it's still pretty raw and unrefined. They've got a lot of guys with incredibly high ceilings who, if they put things together, have a chance to be really talented players and really productive players at the Division I level. A couple of them are somewhat of reclamation projects, but I mean, you look at what CSU's been able to do, their track record with guys like Neat Clifford, but not just Neat Clifford. I mean, the ability to go down to the lower ranks and get guys that are going to come up and translate, like a Joel Scott, like a Joe Palmer. It's just been very impressive. Every player that has come into CSU over the last couple of years, whether it's going to the professional ranks, whether it's going on elsewhere, by the end of the season, they are substantially better players than they were at the beginning. And it's kind of been the exact opposite of football in that regard. And the more you do that, the more you're going to, again, land higher caliber recruits, but also the more success you're going to have a program. That's how you start to become a team like San Diego State, who, year after year, it's not, if you're San Diego State, it's not just about getting to the tournament, it's about getting to the tournament and advancing. And I talked a lot on Monday about this season being an opportunity to really push the Rams into that next tier of college basketball program. You go to 4 tournaments in 5 years, you're mid-major, whatever, but like that's substantial at that point, and that's going to garner a different level of respect. And I'm really excited about the potential of this team. I think the roster, top to bottom, is as deep as it's ever been. I think this is the biggest and most athletic that we've seen CSU men's basketball in quite some time. I mean, and not just because like Rechsteiner has WWE guns, that guy can flex. I mean, even like a guy like Jevin Muniz, and I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm gonna have to second guessing it after what I was hearing on the broadcast, rewatching that game. Muniz, I think they were saying on the broadcast. But like, that's a guy who's started over 90 career games. He's just solid. He's able to get to his spots. He's able to put his head down and get to the rim a couple of times. Had CSU's only block in the game. I really like the build of this roster. And I think if they are able to maximize every single guy, there's a world not only where CSU makes the tournament, but is right there in the mix to potentially win the league again. I do think that San Diego State is firmly the front runner, and it would be a pretty colossal upset for anybody to overcome them for that top spot this season. But I mean, if you finish top 4 in the league, as we've seen the last couple of years, you're going to have a really good chance to secure an at-large bid. And if the Rams are able to build off of what they did in this game 1 showing, clean up a couple of things, I think there's a I think there's a very realistic path to March Madness once again for CSU. I will say the metrics might be a bit of a process for the Rams. The league as a whole, not looking super stout, have already had a couple of landmine losses from different programs. Even Loyola, struggled the other night, and that was supposed to be kind of a Q2 game for CSU on the resume. It might end up being more like a Q3, which would be a disappointment. But all of that will sort itself out over time. No Rashawn Bemba in this one, which was a bit of a disappointment. Injured his ankle in practice the other day. It was like the first practice they finally had with everybody. They had JoJo back. Japa missed some time. Augie missed some time in the preseason. They finally had everybody back, and then Bemba rolls his ankle. I don't think it's going to be anything serious. Maybe he kind of has to ease into things. It's nothing we're not used to dealing with him, but it was annoying, not because I'm upset with him. Rolled ankles are going to be part of basketball, but it was just cruelly ironic given how he was coming off of such a strong offseason. Looked really good in a couple of practices I was able to go to. Guy that looks like he's in the best shape of his career. I think he's really figured out some things offensively. Bemba is going to be a really important piece of the puzzle for CSU, and that's important to remember, as you arguably didn't have one of your 2 or 3 most important pieces in this game, and you were still able to win this game convincingly, never really have to sweat all that much. It's what you should do against Incarnate Word, but, when you look across the conference and see, what Boise did, and Fresno had a bad loss, and don't even get me started on UNLV, UNLV is the best at doing absolutely nothing with all of the brand respect that they get. UNLV's been coasting on what they did almost 40 years ago for the last 3 decades. And every year they get picked to finish top 5 in the Mountain West for some reason. That was the one that irked me. Like CSU finishing 7th in the preseason poll, or coming in 7th, I should say, in the preseason poll. Whatever. Preseason polls are more or less useless anyways. They got picked 7th last year, and look how things played out. If you wanted to say a team like Boise, who had, more returners on paper, San Diego State, GCU, even, no beef with that, even Utah State. But UNLV does jack shit every year, and every year they get this brand recognition, this nod of approval because, oh, it's UNLV, maybe this is the year they put it together. Why? Why do you think that? What have you seen over the last half decade plus that gives you any indication whatsoever that program is going to be better than CSU, than Utah State, than Boise State? I actually think Passner was a pretty good hire, and I do think they'll probably figure it out eventually. I know they've had a lot of injuries. It's a long season, but what a joke. And to those of you that have a vote, because I don't have a vote on the basketball side for whatever reason, despite being the longest tenured beat reporter on this beat for the CSU side of things, I think it's Kevin Lytle and Brian Roth, who I have a ton of respect for. Both those guys obviously have no beef with them having votes, but I know that there are a lot of people that do have them that just genuinely don't pay enough attention to the league. And maybe I'm in my feelings a little bit. Again, preseason polls more or less useless, but watch the conference, and then come back with a straight face and try and justify the preseason ranking of UNLV over CSU. Even with all of the moving parts and with CSU having to replace so much production, I just keep coming back to, what about the UNLV brand in the last 2 decades has made you think that that's a team that's going to put it all together? They might murder the Rams in football on Saturday, but on the basketball side of things, it's very clear which one of these programs is better coached, has a better track record of player development, has had more sustained success, has more clear-cut reasons to believe in their potential. Like, again, I get it. First-year coach, he lost a lot of talent, but Ali was Nico's right-hand man. And if you were expecting some type of substantial drop-off with the team, I don't think you've been paying attention. I just don't. We'll get more into the takeaways there. Didn't mean to get up on my soapbox, but let me shout out a couple more partners, and we'll keep this party rolling. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with the performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart, look no further than our friends at Branded Bills. They've got the best custom headwear around. We have got awesome DNVR and ALLCITY network hats through Branded Bills. I now have 3 different CSU hats as part of their on-campus collection. If you start your order, their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. Or again, you can just check out a lot of the really cool options that they have on the campus collection. They've got a lot of like state themed hats as well. You know, if you're a big Colorado flag guy or super into Texas or something like that, they've got some great options. Head to brandedbills.com, use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Whether it's kickoff, halftime, or postgame, you cannot go wrong with Raising Cane's. Their hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers always hit. Can't forget about the crispy, crinkle-cut fries, or, of course, the buttery Texas toast. I'm not a big coleslaw guy. If you like coleslaw, I've heard theirs is pretty decent. I'm always going to sub the coleslaw for the extra buttery toast every time. You know I'm getting extra cane sauce on the side. That's how real fans fuel up. Add in freshly squeezed lemonade or freshly brewed tea. They do have phenomenal sweet tea. From the drive-thru to the dine-in, Cane's brings the flavor every single time. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. All right. Crackers College Hoops, my guy Steve Ivey says, Ali assembled a staff that's as good as anybody in the Mountain West. 100%. I mean, getting Dave Polopovich was such a low-key, huge moment. I felt like for Ali, just bringing in somebody with that much experience, and then the continuity. I mean, we talked about it. DeWeese is a phenomenal recruiter. Tim Shelton has elevated CSU's front court in a major way these last couple of years. They're a better defensive team since Shelton has come into the picture. Even some of the younger guys, you know, like Gentry and Joe Palmer and some of the guys they've got working with them. Like this is a highly competitive basketball staff that's going to have a lot of success. And wouldn't surprise me if there's multiple head coaches on the sideline right now. I love the headband energy with this team, just fun vibes. Reminds me as an early 2000s NBA fan, somebody who came up, you know, idolizing D-Wade and Melo and LeBron and Allen Iverson. Everybody was rocking a headband in the early 2000s. There are some absolutely hilarious pictures of young J. Mike in head to toe Nuggets powder blue headband, Melo jersey, just looking absolute. It was not a fit that I could pull off if we're being real. But you got to have a fearlessness. The headband is all about the confidence. You know, if you're second guessing yourself, you're not going to pull it off. I didn't have the confidence to pull off the headband back then. These guys, they've got it going. It's a lot of fun. I want to start by shouting out Kyle Jorgensen because he's a guy I feel like I did not hit on enough in either of my post-game written pieces or even on Twitter. You know, I really was focused on watching a lot of these new guys and kind of trying to figure out how they were going to fit into this rotation, especially on the rewatch. Jorgensen is a guy who really set the tone in this win. I thought his passing right out of the bat was huge. You know, Ali brought up the rebounds and the assists. 15 points was a career high. That was great, especially after how well he shot the ball against Creighton, hit 4 threes in that exhibition performance. But it was a little out of sorts offensively in terms of the movement. There was like one disjointed possession where Muniz, and again, I'm not sure if I'm Muniz, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was kind of ran in a full circle, ends up dumping the ball to Jorgensen at the top of the key, and he hits a cutting Rechsteiner for an easy little layup. And it was just great vision, great patience. Was able to hit Kerry Booth in the corner for a 3 a possession or 2 later. Love the vision. I keep talking about how valuable that continuity in the front court is. It's hard to play, especially the 5, but even the 4 in this offense. He is a guy who is, if everything goes to plan, probably going to be more of a 4 this season than a 5. I think defensively that just puts him in a better position to succeed. But with no Bemba, you know, he slides right into that 5 role with the starting lineup and has a really great game. He's active on the glass. He's making good passes. He's hitting threes at the top of the keys, displaying the footwork, you know, at a couple of instances where, you know, really nice footwork down low in the post and then the touch to finish off the glass. I think he is in a position to make a pretty substantial leap this season. And I think he is quietly going to be one of the better players, one of the more efficient type players in the conference this season. I just think that Jorgensen is really well suited to have a breakout year because he looks good physically. He's always had the skill. It's just been, Matt are putting a little bit more muscle on, maybe losing a little bit of that baby weight. He's a young guy, but I'm really excited about what we saw from Kyle Jorgensen. I'm excited from Muniz, what we saw from him in this one. Just a smart basketball player. Felt like he set the tone early on in this game as well with his impact on both sides of the floor. He's a guy who's not afraid to just put his head down and try and get to the hoop, take advantage of that size, can stretch the floor a little bit. But I mean, I just think he's I was trying to find a comparison for him, and he's too skilled offensively to compare him to somebody like Pierce Hornung. Like they don't play the game right, but they have a similar hard hat type mentality, if that makes sense. The vibe with which they approach the game is a similar vein to me. Josh Pasquarelli, really liked what we saw out of him. Missed a couple of jumpers early. I felt like the 3-point shooting struggles were good looks early, but just kind of the product of game one nerves, guys being amped. You saw people missing long. That's going to happen. There are going to be nerves. They're teens. But his skill really was evident as the game progressed. And I actually think my favorite bucket he had all night was not any of the threes that he hit. He went 4 of 6, which was great. I think he's going to be one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. After he missed his first 2 shots from the perimeter, had kind of a nice little up fake, put the ball on the floor, plays on 2 feet, a jump stop in the paint, and finishes with great finesse. It really displayed a level of savviness and obviously a deep bag, but 2, a maturity to his game. Missed a couple of shots long. I'm in my nerves. Why don't I put the ball on the floor and see if I can't get a high quality look at the rim? And he did exactly that. Then you have to respect him on the drive, kind of puts the defense in a bind. Then he starts hitting shots from the perimeter, and he's somebody who's going to be able to create his own shot, but he's going to be lethal on catch and shoot opportunities. I think he can make up for some of what was lost with Kyan Evans going over to North Carolina. But I mean, if you get 3-point shooting like you got from Rex Steiner and Kerry Booth as well, on top of what a guy like Pasquarelli can do for you, this team has a chance to be so dangerous offensively. I think across the board, and Nigon said this a couple of times on the broadcast, this is a better 3-point shooting team than CSU's had in a couple of years now. I think they're going to be a little bit streaky at times, especially guys like Rex Steiner, even Pasquarelli. Like they could be the type of guys that, they have a 1 for 8 type game, and then they follow it up with a 6 of 8 from 3-point. The numbers even out as the course of the season goes on. But I mean, Brandon Rexsteiner, 19 points, 6 of 7 from the floor. He was 4 of 5 from deep, and the one he missed was a great look. Had a really gorgeous highlight, nice little crossover, kind of a little step back fade away from 15 feet or so. He looked awesome. I liked his mentality as well. I like that Rexsteiner came out looking to facilitate. I know Ali credited him for this. But I feel like he passed the ball really well. 6 assists, 4 rebounds. I mean, this was as optimal of a performance as you could get from Rex Steiner, who probably would be better suited to be a 2, like if all things were perfect. If you could put Rex Steiner at the 2 with an Isaiah-type point guard, and maybe that ends up being JoJo or Darnez Slater. It was good to see Slater get some playing time out there. But I do think that he is skilled enough, and I think he's savvy enough to play the point for CSU this year, and it'll just kind of be interesting to see how all of that pans out in the rotation, how those minutes are ultimately divvied up. But he was really encouraging. Kerry Booth shooting the ball well is encouraging. 3 of 4 from 3-point. Really loves those corner threes. I like that Kerry didn't try and do too much either. He did have one instance where he kind of went into the paint without a plan. I felt like he got fouled, but ended up leaving a little floater short. That was maybe trying to do too much there. Really, most of the turnovers were that. It wasn't like sloppy passes. It was guys in the paint trying to do too much. Augie had 1 or 2 of those. Japa had a couple of those. Japa didn't have a great game offensively. Had a couple of turnovers in his small stint on the floor. But I like the potential with this rotation, and I think you've got a lot of positional versatility with the guards and the wings, and I think it's going to be fun to see how they kind of experiment with that. And I think what's really encouraging is, again, you didn't even have Bemba in this game. Augie has not even scratched the surface of how good he can be for CSU once he gets healthy. He's just a really savvy player. He's a guy who you can put the ball in his hands and trust him to facilitate a little bit. He can score from all 3 levels. He can get to his spots. He's a good passer. He's a good rebounder, incredibly hard worker. Augie's going to be really good. JoJo, I think has a chance as the season goes on to be a big part. And one of the things that's exciting about him is he can hang defensively right now. And that's pretty rare for guys of coming into a program to be a freshman and be able to defend along the perimeter like he can. It's only going to help him get more and more minutes. And I think he's a natural facilitator. I think he is a pure point guard and has a chance to be quite good for CSU. You know, I think Jace Butler is a guy we're going to see more of. Got into some early foul trouble, which was a bummer. He had one really BS foul called him where the guy just drives into him completely out of control, gets the bailout call, and of course Butler has to leave because it was second foul in about 60 seconds. But he had a spot up three that looked very reminiscent of Jalen Lake back in the day. I've heard a lot of good things about him behind the scenes. I think Butler is a guy, if they can get him going, if they can get him some catch and shoot looks, can really be a quiet killer for CSU and could be one of those guys where maybe the ball's not in his hands a ton, but you look up at the end of the half and it's like, oh man, Butler had 11 points and he was 3 of 3 from deep. I just think he's got a lot of really encouraging characteristics. And as Swole says, the next steps involve Augie getting Joel Scott level involvement on the low block. Could not agree more. I think he's got the best footwork on the team. And even though he's not built like a 4 or 5 size wise, he is deceptively strong down there. And his skill is very, very encouraging. And I think he's going to play a really big part of CSU's offense and defense this year. I'm excited about this team, guys. Like I know there's going to be some ups and downs. I predicted, they'll lose a game by 20 plus. They'll also win a game in league play by 20 plus. I think the streakiness of the shooting could be a little bit of a concern. I do feel like defensively, the half court stuff looked great. There were a couple of instances where UIW was able to get out in transition and run on the Rams. And I didn't love that. They did a good job of capitalizing on the turnovers that CSU did have, at least in transition. The second chance points and all that kind of stuff favored CSU because they dominated the glass so well. The Rams did finish 15-0 in fast break points. So I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I just felt like the times that they were able to get easy looks, it was really quick in the shot clock, 5 or less seconds when things got set up in the half court. I felt like the Rams were kind of able to smother them and make it pretty challenging. 10 turnovers in game one is fine. It's not great. I'd like to be single digits most night, but it's also not alarming or anything like that for game one with this many new pieces. I mean, you're gonna have more than 10 turnovers at some point this season. I can say that. Just kind of throwing out some key stats as we wrap up the takeaways, then we'll play a couple more post-game clips. 60% from field goal, 52% from 3-point, 22 assists on 29 made field goals. Really felt like a lot like the basketball we'd watched the last couple of years. Plus 23 on the glass, plus 10 in second chance points, all great. The Rams scored on 2/3 of their offensive possessions. That's winning basketball. I love that after they heated up, when they started to drain some of those threes, they didn't get too reliant on the perimeter shooting. They also put their head down and got to the hoop. 20 free throw attempts in that second half. Some of that's UIW hacking. Some of it is a product of the mentality that CSU played with, though. And you love that when they got to the charity stripe, they were able to capitalize 27 of 30 on the night at the free throw line. Again, with this many new pieces, I mean, you're really nitpicking if you're looking for things to whine about, because this was a really encouraging performance. I'm going to play a couple of clips for you in just a second. Let me take a quick breather. Let me shout out these partners, and then we will play those clips. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there is a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. They've got more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled. You can go things like the Western Slope. You can go off-roading, but also You're not sacrificing those smooth city rides. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. I always wish I had one of those super deep TV voices when I do the Toyota reads, just Toyota, proud partner of CSU Athletics. I also want to shout out Coors Light, who encourages you to rise above, to choose chill. Life's going to test you. If you've had to travel anywhere of late, DIA, and I think all airports have been a mess, but there's almost nothing more annoying than that. Being stuck in traffic and feeling hopeless, that's pretty rough. Maybe you're trying to have a barbecue and the crazy wind we had yesterday ruined that. Life is all about rising above when things get annoying. Do the little things. Go out and get some exercise, do your deep breaths, meditate, whatever you've got to do to put yourself in that chill state of mind. Then when you're chilling, when you're kicked back, when you got the game on, when you're around good company, crack open an ice cold Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. And of course, when those mountains turn blue, it's time to have yourself an ice cold Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Beer. Okay. We are going to spend the last portion of this podcast on football. Wah, wah, wah. But I did want to wrap up with a couple of post-game clips, starting with Ali Farokhmanesh talking about the success offensively, whether it was a little bit surprising to him. It's not the easiest system to hit the ground running. I gives credit to his staff, though, for not getting too complicated, for not throwing too much at these guys and just letting them find some success within the base, which is obviously what they've been working on going back to the summer. I thought this was a really astute answer and a great representation of Ali's leadership. It was a whole lot of deflecting the praise elsewhere, and that's exactly what you want in your head coach.
Yeah, I mean, shoot 60%, and 52 from. I guess I can't. Good.
Were you surprised at all, though? It's not the easiest offensive system to just hit the ground running with that many pieces.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm really proud of our staff too, though, because I know myself, I want to keep adding things, and I almost did, and then we talked about it, and we pulled it back, and we just stuck to our base, and our base has gotten so much better because of that. And I think it's a huge credit to our staff. We've stuck to the base. We've stuck to, it is complicated, so I don't want to say it's basic, but we've stuck to what we've been teaching them really since June. We haven't added a whole lot of other stuff besides some wrinkles to some plays out of our base offense, but I think that's the best part about it, is we really haven't added a whole lot. We've just taught them the nuances of it and what they're looking for depending on how they're being guarded. And I give a ton of credit to our scout group too. They practice more than our players practice. Baylor Head is in the best shape of his life, probably. Joe Palmer's in the best shape of his life. So those guys giving our guys reads day to day, I think that's why their IQs have picked up, and they've learned probably faster than I thought they were going to.
It is subtly a really big factor. When you've got Tim Shelton and Baylor Heb and Joe Palmer out there to run and give you advanced scout looks instead of some of the stuff that was happening in the U Stacy era. But I felt like that was a great mentality, a great mindset from Ali. Don't throw too many things at these players. He also talks about Nico Medved and Ben Jacobson, his coach at Northern Iowa, giving very similar advice. Just stick to what you know. Don't get too chaotic. The teams that win in November, the teams that do the simple things well. And CSU did the simple things well in this. Here is Brandon Recksteiner and then Kyle Jorgensen talking about what it means to them to be a part of Ali's first career win.
It means everything to me because how much belief I have in him and just how much faith he puts in all of us. We really want to go out there and play for him, so it means a lot.
For sure. He's a big reason why I stayed. He's somebody I go to for everything. He's not even just a coach. He's he's a mentor. So when you play for somebody like that, it makes you want to go out there and just go full out every game for a guy like that.
Love to hear it from the players. It's so easy to see why guys are drawn to Ali and the staff and why they want to be a part of this program. And it's a big part of what's allowed them to have so much success. It's not just about finding talented players. It's about finding the right pieces to the puzzle, guys that are going to help you day to day establish the culture, the work ethic, the habits that it takes to be able to win consistently. Because it's not just as simple as get a bunch of ballers in here. If it was, there'd be a lot more consistently better programs. We're going to kind of fly through this. This is the Mountain West Basketball Power Ranking 1.0. We only have a 1-game sample size with everybody other than Fresno State, so take everything with a grain of salt. This is both a grade of what I think of you based on what we've seen to this point, as well as what I think your ceiling is. You know, my preseason opinion is still very much a part of this equation, although, you know, like with some of these teams like Boise and UNLV, the results have to count for something. So keep that in mind. Starting at number 12, we have got Air Force. It's going to be real tough for Air Force basketball to be even remotely relevant in the modern landscape. Even the talent that they get always ends up transferring out. They lost 79-63 to Belmont. Have a feeling it's going to be a long season for our friends over in the Springs. Number 11, Fresno State, coming off of a tough loss, 67-66 to USC Upstate. I saw some media members from other beats whose programs suffered embarrassing performances trying to play up this Fresno State result. Fresno sucks. There were no expectations for them whatsoever. Them losing this game is bad for the metrics of the league, sure, but let's not be disingenuous and act like anybody in the world had any ounce of respect for Fresno State coming to this game. They've got a decent backcourt. I mean, they added some transfers. Heinbreder or whatever his name is, the former Air Force guard that came over. He should be a productive player, but I mean, Fresno is Fresno. San Jose State at number 10. I probably would have had them at 11 or 12 in the preseason, but fairly respectable showing against Utah, 84-75. Obviously, we've got a lot of love for Tim Miles. Wyoming at 9. They're going to be frisky. Almost jumped them over UNLV and Boise just to make a statement, but I wanted to be somewhat realistic with what I think the ceilings of these teams are. I do think they will be much better than last year. They beat Northern State, a solid D2 program, 99-75. UNLV at 8. I've already ranted about them. Nobody does less with more. They're coming off of an awful loss at home to UT Martin, team that's going to rank in the 300s probably in Metro. Just an awful start to the Pastner era. Awful performance from Boise State as well. I think you could make an argument that was the worst loss in Mountain West basketball history. It was that bad. 70, what was the final score? 79-78 to Hawaii Pacific, a school that looks like it's in a strip mall. Not a good start. Not a good start for a program that was hoping to have some success this season. Long year. But man, they have an uphill battle to offset the perception hit that was taken with this one. I've got New Mexico at 6, 76-54 over East Texas A&M. Nevada 5, coming off of a nice win over Louisiana Tech. I put Grand Canyon at 4, not super convincing against Purdue Fort Wayne. I mean, 90-71. It was never in doubt or anything like that. Would have liked to see a little bit more style points there. Would have liked to see a little bit better defensive effort. I've got CSU at 3, coming off of a really strong showing against Incarnate Word. Utah State comes in at number 2. They doubled up Westminster, which is a school I've never heard of. And then obviously San Diego State at the top spot, 77-45 against Long Beach State, even despite not having Bird. So really strong showing from San Diego State out of the gate. I think the top 3 or 4 teams will be in the mix for a tournament, depending on how this sorted out. I think the top 7 or so teams have a realistic opportunity to be in that conversation. But that's where we're at with the first Mountain West power ranking of the year. Not a bad start for old CSU after being taken 7th in the preseason. All right, you want to know what, Taylor? The power rankings graphic does look great. And I want to shout out our guy, Yahir, one of our many awesome producers right now. We've got Alyssa running the sticks. She's incredible as well. I'm fortunate to work with some really talented people, and I really appreciate taking the time to help us make those power rankings pop a little bit more. It means a lot. All right, 55 minutes into the show, we will preview the Saturday football game, if that doesn't tell you where we're at with this football season, I don't know what does, but it's going to be the 26th all-time meeting between CSU and UNLV. The Rams currently lead the all-time series 17-7-1. CSU has won 10 of their last 11 against UNLV in Fort Collins. The only time they've lost to UNLV at home in the 21st century was the 2002 upset. And if you have listened to this podcast long enough, you know that that game has some specific lore and was a big part of my villain origin story. I mean, that game taught me heartbreak, man. The 04 showdown ended up being worse a couple years later, the Marcus Houston play, but CSU with a chance to run the table in the league slate for the first time, maybe a chance to, jump into the top 15, and to blow that game. Classic Ram life, one of the worst instances of it that we've ever had. UNLV, they started 6-0 this year under Dan Mullen. They have lost 2 straight. I think everybody knows how I feel about this program. I think defensively, they're Swiss cheese. They play in a lot of shootouts. I mean, you look at this 38-31 against Idaho State, 41-38 Miami of Ohio, 51-48 to Air Force. They're 6-2. Very easily could be 4-4, if not even 3-5 or worse. They're a top 15 scoring offense, but a top 10 or a bottom 10, scoring defense. They run for about 200 yards a game, and they give up about 200 yards a game. I will say, though, if anybody can find a way to not move the ball on this UNLV defense, it's probably the old CSU Rams. So I certainly would not hold my breath or expect big things in this matchup. Just based on what I saw against Wyoming, it's just hard to envision a world where CSU does much of anything these last couple of weeks. A couple of keys for the Rams in this game. Keep Calandria contained within the pocket. He's a guy who can really burn you with his legs, has had a great season for UNLV. You got to stop the run in general, but if he starts burning you with his legs, it's going to put this team in a really vulnerable spot. CSU has struggled with some of those more mobile quarterbacks the last couple of years, so definitely something to keep an eye on. You're going to have to force turnovers. UNLV has been inclined to give the ball up a little bit, so there's a world where that could happen. Create some spark plays, give yourself an opportunity. Obviously, you can't turn the ball over the other way like you did against Wyoming. The whole selling point for having more of a game manager type under quarterback is you're not going to do that, so you can't press things the way you did against the Pokes. But I will say, every defense that CSU has played in the Mountain West portion to this point is substantially better than UNLV. Can you run the ball with success? I've given up any form of hope for this passing offense figuring it out this season. Can you run the ball, and then can you hit a couple of open throws off of it? If you can do that, maybe you've got a shot. If you can't, probably in a pretty rough spot, and probably not in a position to succeed. I mean, a win technically would keep the potential of bowl eligibility on the line. You'd have to win out. Again, it's hard to even joke about that, but we'll see. Snow days, at least they're going to be wearing cool uniforms. At least it's going to be a night game. It would have been kind of weird optically to have a snow days event, and it's going to be like 65 and sunny on Saturday afternoon. Not taking any shots at CSU. I think it's a cool promotion. I just think optically it's a little funny how that all played out. We're about to take it to overtime. If you are watching on your TV, head over to thednvr.com to catch at the end of the show. If you're watching on some of the other platforms, you are all good. But let's go ahead and send it to overtime real quick. All right. I wanted to have a brief edition of what's happening in Agland, a classic CSU Rams segment where we hit on some of the other programs that we don't typically focus on, the Olympic sports and whatnot. CSU volleyball unlikely to win the Mountain West Championship after falling 3-1 to Utah State and Logan last night. Now a full 3 games back of Utah State. The team is young. I'll give them that. The program just isn't what it once was, and that's not all on the coaching staff or anything like that. I want to be fair to Emily Cohen. I've had her on the show a couple times. She's been great. But it started late in the Hilbert era. He really coasted at the end, probably stayed 2 or 3 years longer than he would have. And in an ideal situation, he earned that right. Don't get me wrong. But the program has just taken a dip competitively from what it once was. Still really solid. But I mean, there were days where you would have never dreamed of CSU not winning the league. And when a big program came, that was just like, well, we're going to win in 3 or 4 sets. And they just don't have that same killer instinct that they used to, probably don't have the same talent either. Soccer most recently fell to San Diego State in the Mountain West Championships. Kind of fizzled out as the year went on. A respectable showing. Maybe didn't quite live up to the hopes and expectations after the hot start. Really would like to see that program take the next step. I think Keely Hagan's done a great job with the team. I feel like in the Pac-12 era, soccer might have the highest ceiling of all the women's sports programs. You know, when you look at track as well, obviously track's always going to be good at CSU. But just the access to talent that you have locally when it comes to soccer, I think that's intriguing. And then finally, women's hoops, convincing win over Weber State, 75-58 in game one. Indiana transfer Lexis Bargesser with 22 points. Really solid showing. She's got some Ronzik to her game, maybe a little bit more of a post player. But I'm excited to see what she can be. Next up, Long Beach State. That's all I've got for you. I know we were all over the map. I guess we do have a couple of questions starred from earlier in the Toyota chat. Aaron wants to know, serious question, is there any way Ali can live up to the hype that he has right now? First, his hire got everyone hyped, and then he killed it in the first game. In my opinion, I think you have to pump the brakes again. I do think that's important to remember that it's year one. They're replacing 85% of their production from a year ago. There's going to be a lot of highs and lows. In this first season, you're going to have some guys, again, who are reclamation projects, which means there's going to be games like last night where they show their high ceiling. You know, a guy like Rex Steiner scores 19 points. You know, Booth goes 3 of 4 from deep. There's also going to be games where they look more like the players that had to transfer out of their old program for a reason. You know, I'm not trying to put them down, but there's a reason that these guys left their high majors, you know, in order to come to CSU. And that's because they're looking to develop themselves and find consistency. Progress rarely is a linear, you know, it's going to be all over the place. We want it to be this straight line ascension. Very rarely is that the case. So pumping the brakes is important. I do think it helps that the league doesn't look crazy good. You know, I think it'll be fine still. I think people are going to overreact based on a small sample size early. It's still going to be a multi-bid league. Also, probably not a year where you're going to have like 6-7 teams that are on the bubble like we've seen at times. So that's where I'm at. Cowboy50, great username. What's going on with the coaching search? I don't have anything sourced as far as like, here is their top targets. That's one of the big benefits of having a search firm, is it's able to keep some of that tighter to the vest. I mean, as soon as I get any of that, obviously I'll put that info out. I've heard some rumblings here and there about guys that may or may not be interested. But I just want to be careful, because so much of the info that gets floated around is from bad actors trying to act like they know more than they really do, or it's from agents that have their own agendas and narratives to push. And I just want to be careful, because I think it's very easy for things to get taken out of context. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. We are always proud to be. We'll be going live again next Monday, next Friday, same as usual. We'll be at Moby on Sunday for Game 2 of the Farokhmanesh era. Much love, y'all. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.